Hello, my name is Arvin, and this is my final project for my Introduction to Digital Audio Arts class. This is a revision of a mix that we did previously, and this is just a song that we were given to learn how to mix and work with some plugins for modulation effects, compression, equalization, reverb. So what I did differently this time was I definitely tried to fix some snare issues that I had before with the compression. Before I had it about 1.5 milliseconds, which was really fast compression. The attack was just cutting out all those nice transients that I really wanted to keep. So I suggested to try out around 5 milliseconds, and it really worked. Sounds so much better. I did use some automation for some certain parts that I felt like were needed. Most of the automation was just for bypassing, actually, just the effects such as the flanger, chorus, and phaser that I put in and were required for the project. For reverbs, I kept everything the same, as well as my levels for all my faders, for all my tracks, and as well as the panning. I kept that all the same so I could make sure that what I was doing was an improvement and not changing the mix, so that it was something completely different. So what else I did was before I used the stock air effects that come with Pro Tools, and I wasn't really liking how they were sounding with the guitar tracks in the mix, and I went for some other effects that I had, such as this flanger stomp box emulation, I think, and a C1, as well as the orange phaser instead of the air phaser, flanger, and the chorus. And that's mostly because these more emulate the kind of guitar stomp box sound I was going for. And I think it sounds much better now. How everything was mixed is through stems. Right now it's not set up that way, but previously my drums were set up to a stem that went out of my interface in its outputs of 1 and 2. My bass went out outputs 3 and 4, rhythm guitars 5 and 6, and lead guitars 7 and 8. And the result would be summed in a 4-channel stereo summing mixer, and would be brought back into my interface on a stereo sum. The stereo sum would be brought back and recorded, and that result is right here, and that is what I used previously as my bounced mix for handing in a few weeks ago. Let's take a quick listen. Alright, so as you can see, just by the levels of the fader and just these peak meters, that it's pretty quiet. Of course, I was only going for the balance of the mix previously, but this time I wanted to try some compression. Some mastering, actually. I didn't try any compression for my mastering. I didn't want to. We were told actually to try and keep some dynamic range, because we don't want everything to look like a square wave and basically just lose all that nice goodness of dynamics, which is important in my belief, at least. So if we listen to my mastered mix right now, which I just brought back into from Adobe Audition, that's what I used to master. If we just listen kind of to the same part. it is much louder for sure. That is because of normalization and not compression. My peaks are around minus 2.05 dB, but actually I normalized it to minus 0.2. So somewhere in the mix, that's the highest point that it will be at. So I'll take you through really quickly how I did that. If we go to Adobe Audition, you can see that I already put in my unmastered bounce track. So that's this right here. It's even just as standard. It is, you can see that it's pretty quiet. There are some definite peaks that do stick out for sure. Especially there at the snare solo on the song. So what I did first, I'll just take you through a quick step of what I did. What I did was actually just went in and went to a normalizing. I know you could do this in another DAW or whatever, but I chose to do it in Adobe because you can really clearly see the waveform. And so here's my previous settings that I had it at. So I'm just going to apply. You can see here that it's just zoomed in a bit. And you can see right here, that right there is what is going to be our minus 0.2 peak. So if we play, and you just saw right there in the meters, everything was pretty consistent around here, but that peak is not so nice for getting everything to kind of be on the same page. It's maybe a little bit too dynamic at that point. So what you could do is just what I'm doing here. Just zoom in, select this region, and there's an adjust amplitude where you could just slide down or actually elevate, increase. So that's what I'm going to try out. So I just reduced that peak right now, and we could take a listen, but you understand the point. You don't want to do too much of it because you could possibly add some aliasing or something like that. So you could do that for all these other regions and peaks. So you could just go back and normalize again, and we'll see a slight difference. Right now this is our peak, our highest peak in the mix, and we could do that again, just reduce it, and we could get our overall levels a little bit higher, and that's essentially what I did. But there's a certain point where you have to say, am I just searching for more peaks, or am I actually making the mix sound better? So I left it where I consider it that it was good. Afterwards, there's one nice section here called special, where you can see a loudness meter, and that will tell you, it's by TC Electronic, will tell you according to certain standards such as radio standards and CD master, how your mix is going. And if we play, alright, so blue is essentially our noise floor in a CD master, and green is a good level. Anything past the circle here is a clip, and you'd like to be around in this region here, or just passing it for a CD master. Depends what you're mastering for, right? So another effect used was just called the mastering effect, and right now it's showing the actual settings that I used, and it shows reverb, exciter, widener, loudness maximizer, output gain, and a little bit of equalization that you could do. So what I did was just I tamed a little bit of the lower frequencies just to get rid of a bit of boominess that I wasn't a fan of in the mix, and a little bit of body as well as some air that you get from the higher shelf. Not a very high Q for the bandpass. As well, I didn't do any loudness maximization, which is essentially just a hard limiter, and that would just make your mix sound like no dynamic range and basically look like a square wave. No output gain, and I did a bit of widening, about 40%. It's not very clear what the percentage indicates, but it does make it much wider or narrower, and this was very helpful. It made it sound just much more bright, much more wide, and it made it sound very nice in my opinion. Anyways, if I click down here, this is my end result of all that. Essentially all that was left was I just got rid of some of the silence at the beginnings and ends. Anyways, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Take care.